Alright, I just finished reading Tallstar's Revenge, guys, and I know, I'm behind the times and all that, but I gotta say, Tallstar's Revenge was awesome. This book has been hyped up to me for quite a bit. Everyone loves talking about Tallstar's little gay romp with Jake, and I love Windclan, so I'm surprised I didn't pick up the book when it came out. I was a little worried that everyone's high praise of the book was going to backfire on me, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much as a result, but that turned out not to be the case. Tallstar's Revenge really impressed me on multiple levels, and right now it's my favorite Warriors book. Now, since some of you don't seem to understand the concept of analysis, I will be spoiling the events of Tallstar's Revenge. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch. With that being said, let's jump right into this baby. We have here a whole new cast of characters that aren't in any of the other books. There are a few characters that have been established before, like Hawkheart, Barkface, and Tallstar, of course, but these characters have had very little development in the past, which is fantastic because this gives the authors the chance to write characters that fit in around the story they want to tell, instead of having to write in already established characters and mold them into somehow telling a story that they wanted to tell. I wish the Urans would take advantage of this more often and skip forward in time in the Warriors universe because their writing always benefits from it. I'll have to read Dawn of the Clans to see if this is true throughout the entire series, but from what I've heard, Dawn of the Clans also benefits from having a whole new cast. Back to Tallstar's Revenge, though. The Urans take full advantage of their cast of characters and Windclan in general, and everything seems to flow so well together to fit the narrative. Warriors hasn't seen a cohesive story like this since the original series, in my opinion. Even some of the other super editions fall into the trap of awkwardly putting in hints to other things happening in other books, and while Tallstar's Revenge isn't completely devoid of that, the times where it does come up end up working into the narrative nicely enough. Two examples of this would be the prologue and a later chapter where Talltail needs to go to the RiverClan medicine cat for herbs. One of these is a good way to make a callback to the other books, and the other, well, is the prologue. If you take the prologue out, I don't feel like the story misses anything, and maybe it even gets better. We see Heather Star receive her 9 lives, and then she has a conversation with Mothflight, where Mothflight tells her not to demand the loyalty of her clan. To which Heather Star is reasonably skeptical and hostile to such an idea. This whole beginning is pretty unnecessary. It reeks of past Warriors tropes, and it's a pretty bad way to start off a good book. Mothflight and Daisytail appear as quick nods to past lore, and as reminders that Windclan is cool, and thus this all sort of feels out of place. It would make more sense for Heather Star to be receiving her 9 lives from Warriors she knew, but instead she's getting lives from Windclan cats she never met in real life, which either means that she doesn't know 9 dead cats, or the Urans just wanted to write in these characters for the reader to recognize. This prologue does end up coming back later though in the book, as Heather Star realizes that Talltail is the cat Mothflight talked about, and she later has a conversation with Talltail telling him about the vision. But yet again, this whole setup and payoff feels a little too obvious and unnecessary. The reader knows right from the beginning that Mothflight is talking about Talltail, and most anyone who reads this book knows that Tallstar comes back to be leader of Windclan. So now you've just given away that Talltail eventually leaves Windclan, which is something that the whole book takes great lengths to build up to that moment, and then when Talltail returns, it's not the end of the story, so now the thing you've set up at the beginning isn't even the climax of the book, and now there's no tension when Talltail leaves or comes back, because you know Heather Star is going to be okay with everything, because StarClan told her to let this happen, and yeah, it's probably my one gripe with this book. It obviously doesn't ruin it for me, since I've got nothing else but praise for it. And considering the story is really not about plot twists or surprising developments, and more about Talltail's character arc, it's a pretty forgivable misstep. On the other hand, there's another one of these kinds of callbacks to the other books when Talltail goes to RiverClan to get medicine for Hopkit. He meets Brambleberry there, and we learn that she is taking care of Stormkit, who is recovering from a broken jaw. Longtime readers of this series know that the cat she's taking care of is none other than Crooked Star. But other than include a mention to another important character, the scene serves 2 other important purposes. First, it gives us a time frame as to when this is all taking place relative to the other books. Second, this interaction serves as storytelling shorthand. Talltail believes Hopkit will one day be a good warrior of Windclan, despite his disability if just given the chance. We see Stormkit, another damaged youth, struggling to cling for life. Yet again, readers know that Stormkit grows up to be Crookedstar, a warrior who passed all expectations of his clanmates and became leader of RiverClan. We apply that same situation to Hopkit, and we want to see him overcome the odds the same way Crookedstar did. And now we connect with Talltale's desire to make the kit an apprentice. As another added bonus, Hopkit turns out to be Deadfoot, Tallstar's deputy at the beginning of the original series, which just lets my brain fill in all the story that the Errands didn't even have to write about their relationship, since the book ends shortly after Deadpaw is made Talltale's apprentice. See what I mean about this book being awesome? Even minor characters get a bit of the spotlight in this book, and get even more fleshed out backstories. I love it. And we've barely even gotten started. Since our perspective is from Talltale, we're not only given the characterization of his clanmates as the authors see them, but as Talltale sees them. And oh boy, does Talltale have a perfectly jaded view of the world that adds a whole new wonderful angle to this book. His character arc is one of the best I've read in Warriors. And can I also just take a moment to point out that his name is Talltale? When the whole story revolves around Talltale's hyperbole of the events that took his father's life and led him to the drastic conclusions about what he must do about that. Warrior names are usually symbolic of a character's personality or characteristics, but this one hits the nail right on the head. Speaking of hitting the nail on the head, we start this Super Edition proper very strongly, and so much foreshadowing and character development is done perfectly in just the first few chapters, and this continues to deliver throughout the whole book. We start with Tallkit. It's his second day out of the nursery, and right off the bat I want to point out some awesome characterization going on in this book. "Can we play sliding in the hollow?" Bartkit mewed. "I want to go to the hunting stones," Shrewkit insisted. He scraped up a pawful of snow and flung it at Bartkit. The wind snatched the flakes and tossed them back into his whiskers. As he sneezed, Bartkit purred with amusement. "Wow, you're scary." "I'll show you." Shrewkit hurled himself at his brother and sent him rolling over the grass. Tallkit backed away as their dark brown pelts scuffed in the snow. It must be fun to have a litter mate to play fight with. If only Finchkit hadn't died. Shrewkit leapt free from his brother's grip. "Look at Tallkit," he teased. "He's blinking like he just opened his eyes." Tallkit bristled. "I'm nearly half a moon old, and Sangor said I opened my eyes quicker than any kit in the nursery." He glared at his dead mates. "I'm just not used to the snow." Tallkit already has a burning prideful streak that has been instilled in him from his mother and father. The passage continues with Palebird telling Tallkit why Windclan cats are better than any other clan, which is something we see every clan talk about, but Windclan has some interesting history to go along with it. The previously mentioned Mothflight was the first to discover the Moonstone, and since Windclan cats spend more of their time than the other clans under the stars, they naturally feel closer to their Star Clan ancestors than the other clans, which I totally buy because I think Windclan is the only clan I know of who actually takes their apprentices to the Moonstone. You can't fool me, ThunderClan. You never took anyone to the Moonpool outside that one time and into the wild. But Windclan's history goes deeper than that, with the tale of Shattered Ice, the first Windclan tunneler, who saved his clan from a harsh leaf bear by breaking through the ice to hunt underground. This Windclan pride becomes a large part of Tallkit's character, but this passage also goes to show what a believable childlike character he is. He's overzealous, he feels a burning need to prove himself to his father and the other kits in the nursery, and he's easily goaded by Shrewkit's bullying nickname for him, Wormkit. These are characteristics that grow along with Talltale and establish his character early, but as a kid he also doesn't have the fortitude or experience of an older cat. When he messes up his first time digging with Sangors, Talltale calls out a frightened declaration of hatred for tunneling, and runs back to his mother, pining for her attention, just like a child would. We also witness this very heartbreaking scene where Tallkit talks to his mother, Palebird, about his dead sister Finchkit. Since Tallkit is a child, the concept of death is foreign to him, and he can't really understand the emotions Palebird is going through. But as an adult reading these books from a child's perspective, my heart breaks as I realize that Palebird is suffering really hard from postnatal depression, which is only made worse with Finchkit's death. I love how the Urns tackled this character and incorporated this kind of mental illness into these books. I've already seen some fans attack poor Palebird's character and call her a bad mother, or worse, compare her to Rainflower or other bad moms in this series. But I think you guys are missing the point of her character. It does show just how well this book is written, though. Tall Kit has no grasp of Palebird's depression, just like some of the readers it seems. And later on in the book, when Palebird seems to finally be getting better and has a new mate in Woollytail, Talltail feels betrayed by her lack of loyalty to Sandgorse. And apparently some of the fans were right there along with our protagonist, ready to blame Palebird for a condition she couldn't help. Personally, I was so happy to see the Urns give Palebird a complete story arc in the background of this novel. She has a kidding that goes well and a new mate that loves her, and she's able to return to her warrior duties eventually as well. It's one of the few cases in Warriors where a character is able to recover from their breaking point successfully. She may not have always been the most supportive mother to Talltail, but the girl overcame her depression, and she was never as bad of a mother as Rainflower, who was just outright cruel. None of this was ever the focus of Talltail's story either. It had a satisfying beginning, middle, and end all in the background, while simultaneously causing a ripple effect into Talltail's story, and even showcases some of the themes of the book before Talltail experiences them. Loss, the inability to let go, acceptance, and moving on. Palebird's depression over losing Finchkit leaves a mark on Talltail that follows him throughout the rest of the book. Talltail sometimes wonders if Palebird would have been happier if Finchkit had survived instead of him, and this feeling of inadequacy and inferiority to the dead sister who never had a chance shapes Talltail in so many subtle and yet obvious ways. Talltail isn't the only character to get this awesome characterization though, as I demonstrated with Palebird already. Most of the important cast gets really well highlighted, and for added flavor, these personalities clash with Talltail's insecurities, painting Windclan in a more favorable or miserable tone based on Talltail's own feeling of belonging. Shrewclaw is probably the best example of this. Throughout Talltail's whole life, Shrewclaw has been there bullying, pestering, and pushing Talltail around, even though Talltail is often praised for shaping up to be a really good Windclan warrior. Shrewclaw teases Talltail mercilessly about how he should be a tunneler, hitting a nerve with Talltail time and time again. To the reader, Shrewclaw comes off as an asshole, and Talltail's hatred of the Tom seems all too justified. It's not until after Sandgrose's death that we start to piece together that maybe Shrewclaw isn't so bad. Shrewclaw is even bewildered to find out that Talltail wants to leave, and expresses how the name-calling and rivalry was always a joke to him that Talltail took more personally than Shrewclaw was aware of. I don't understand. Shrewclaw blinked as Talltail reached him. How can you leave? We trained together. I thought I'd always have you to hunt alongside. Talltail shrugged. Hunt with someone else. He met Shrewclaw's gaze, surprised to find it darkening with sadness. I thought you'd be glad to see Wormcat leave. I'm sorry. Shrewclaw's ear twitched. I was only ever teasing. It's more fun teasing than being teased, Talltail commented. He pushed away his bitterness and lifted his chin. But that's not why I'm leaving. There's something I have to do, and I can't do it here. Then when Talltail comes back and his whole perspective on things has changed, Shrewclaw is still the same teasing, rash warrior he's always been, but Talltail greets him as a friend. His teasing feels more lighthearted, his rashness makes him a formidable warrior. Going back and reading it a second time, you realize that Shrewclaw was always like this, but it's Talltail's outlook on life that paints the worst picture of him. You can see these changes for all of the characters throughout Talltail's apprenticeship, and then further into his life. When Talltail feels insecure, Windclan becomes a lonely place, where cats don't want to associate with him, and he just keeps making mistake after mistake. He can't please Palebird, and he can't please Sandgrose. He feels responsible for Brackenwing's death, and life is just unfair and unjust. But when Talltail comes back after coming to peace with Sandgrose's death, and more confidence in himself, Windclan is home. It's where he belongs. On the topic of Windclan, holy crap was Windclan well established. Never before has a clan felt so real and tangible, as tangible about a book series about fantasy cats can be. The conflict and interclan politics game is strong in this book. From the broken fractions between the Moorrunners and the Tunnelers, to the way Windclan camp is described and the terrifying imagery put forth about the tunnels and how scared Talltale is of them. Windclan is bursting with interesting things to talk about. This is fantastic because Windclan and the idea of home and belonging is such an important theme in this book. Like I previously said, Talltale's attitude shapes the view of his clanmates, and Windclan feels different because of this. Windclan has a different culture to it than any other clan, and I loved how both the Moorrunners and Tunnelers took such pride in their work. Talltale and the other Moorrunners have such a connection to the wind and sky. Talltale especially waxes poetic about how he loves seeing the sky above him. And we see that same trait in his father, who obviously has the same passion for tunneling. And with these two kind of specialty warriors, Moorrunners and Tunnelers, who don't spend much time together and mainly keep to their own groups, we feel like Windclan is split between two separate clans most of the time. With Heatherstar and Reedfeather as Windclan's leader and deputy, the Tunnelers no longer hold power in the clan, and even though they do an important and dangerous job, they're underappreciated and unrepresented. But this is also understandable given how, to anyone who's not a tunneler, their job seems like a dangerous waste of time. It's probably for the best that Heatherstar abolished the tunneling systems, but part of me is curious if her actions led to Windclan getting driven out by Brokenstar before the events of Into the Wild. Now, I've talked about Windclan and Talltale and characterization, but it's time to talk about the best part of this book. Jake. Jake is fantastic. I love fat kitty pet fire dad so much, and he is the perfect character to accompany Talltale on his journey. He's only in the book for 10 chapters. Yes, 10 chapters. But the impression he leaves on Talltale is undeniable. Talltale and Jake share many similarities, even though their personalities and backgrounds are quite different. That might sound like a contradiction, but I really think it's true. Jake and Talltale both live fairly comfortable lives before they met each other. Talltale is a respected Windclan warrior, and Jake lives the cozy life of a kitty pet. Both are seeking the proverbial more. However, when Talltale shows up, Jake gets wrapped up in the adventurous lifestyle Talltale lives. Talltale left Windclan to get revenge, but also to see what lies outside of Windclan's borders. The vast Moor territory felt small and confining, adding to Talltale's unhappiness. Then we have Jake, who literally lives in the confines of his two legs home. Sure, he has the garden and neighboring cats' gardens to explore, but there's never been a reason for him to go beyond that until Talltale arrived. Obviously, it's their personalities that make them quite different. Jake is happy in his home and content with being a kitty pet, while Talltale is extremely bitter and lost. Numerous times, Jake is laughed at or thought less of because of his kitty pet nature, but when this happens, Jake always just calmly responds with, "That's who he is." This can be directly compared to Talltale's insecurities about whether he should be a Moorrunner or Tunneler. Jake has the confidence to know who he is, while Talltale, who obviously loves being a Moorrunner, almost gives up his passion to please his dead father, thinking that becoming a Tunneler would add meaning to his death. Talltale has so little confidence that he's willing to do something he obviously hates to please others. I think we can all relate to this struggle at some point in our lives, but luckily, Talltale has Jake, who seems to understand Talltale better than anyone in his past has. Jake sticks with Talltale even when he leaves Two Leg Place, and Talltale admits that he's planning on killing Sparrow when he finds him. Jake pleads for Talltale to reconsider, and even asks Talltale what he plans to do once Sparrow is dead. Which gave me the Last Airbender feelings all over again.
I know my own destiny, Uncle.
Is it your own destiny? Or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you?
Stop it, Uncle. I have to do this.
I'm begging you, Prince Zuko. It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
When Talltail is about to kill Sparrow, however, Jake's words come back to him, and after Sparrow explains what happened to Sandgorse, Talltail lets Sparrow live. Just because our protagonist decided to do the right thing, though, it's not all sunshine and rainbows after that. Talltail and Jake leave Sparrow be, and start to head back to Two-Leg Place, but Talltail feels empty. His need for vengeance is gone, Sparrow still lives, and Sandgorse is still dead. Talltail wonders what all this was for if his destiny was not to avenge his father like he thought. He's left with this feeling of empty loneliness that's worse than before. While reading this, I could feel the hollow purposelessness that Talltail was feeling. After working so long to reach a goal, even if that goal was bad and you came out of it a better person for not achieving it, you still feel unfulfilled. Yet again, though, Talltail is lucky to have Jake, who knows exactly what Talltail needs. And this is the part of the book where I cry. After several days of walking, Jake asks Talltail to show him the clans. 4 trees! His heart soared. Come on! Talltail streaked down the slope. This territory belongs to all the clans. He suddenly felt more at ease than he had for moons. The ground familiar beneath his paws as he raced into the clearing between the oaks. He circled it, staring in delight at the towering trees. The claws in his belly seemed to uncurl and release him. His paws felt light. Those trees are gigantic! Jake stood in the center of the hollow, staring wide-eyed into the branches. Then he looked around. Which way is Windclan territory? Talltail nodded at the far slope. Jake bounded towards it. Come on! Talltail raced after him, leaping up past shriveled clumps of fern. Jake stopped at the top and gazed across the moor. Why did you ever want to leave? He whispered. The heather rocked in the blustery wind, the wide swaths of grass streaming around it. Talltail couldn't reply. The border was only tail lengths away. The scent of it seemed to reach deep into his chest. I left because I don't belong here. But the words rang hollow in his ears. As the sense of wind and heather filled his nose, he felt a sense of belonging stronger than he ever felt. Cloudrunner had passed by this way recently, and Dawnstripe. He could smell their trail. Larksplash, too. Talltail's heart began to race. I can't go home. He stared in panic at Jake. They won't want me. I broke the warrior code when I left my clan. They'll drive me away again. Are you sure? Jake patted around him, pelt ruffled by the wind. You won't know unless you go back. Talltail closed his eyes. Was the wind tugging him into the moor, or was it the pull of home? His heart ached to see the camp again. And Palebird. Had the kits grown? They must have. They'd be eating fresh kill by now. Perhaps he wouldn't be too late to give them their first taste of lapwing. This is your home, Talltail. Jake's breath touched his ear. His green eyes glistened. This is where you belong. Listen to your heart. Longing seared in his chest. I know, Talltail whispered. Jake touched Talltail's cheek with his muzzle. I'll miss you. Talltail gasped. Don't go! Come with me! Come and meet my clan! Jake stepped back. This is where you belong. Not me. His mew was hardly more than a whisper. My home is with my housefolk. He'll be wondering where I am. Will I ever see you again? Jake glanced over his shoulder toward the far horizon. Who knows? Maybe? Hope flared in Talltail's chest. Become a warrior. You'd be great. You learned how to hunt so quickly, and you can fight foxes. Jake dropped his gaze. No, Talltail. I wouldn't be happy. You wouldn't be happy with me? Pain stabbed Talltail's heart. Jake lifted his eyes. I can't live as a warrior. He looked away, his mew crackling. But I'll always remember you. You've shown me a life I've always dreamed about. But now I know where I truly belong. Then I'll come with you and live in Two-Leg Place. Telltale wanted to do anything to stop the pain in his heart. Don't be rabbit-brained. Jake's eyes flashed. You hate it there. You'd be so unhappy. He paused, his tone softening. I'd hate for you to be unhappy. Then why are you leaving? Telltale pleaded. You're the best friend I've ever had. I'll always be your friend, Telltale. But I'm a kitty pet, and you're a warrior. He stepped forward and rested his muzzle on Telltale's head. You'll always be a warrior. Telltale and Jake part ways, and then we see how Telltale has truly grown as a character now that he's back in Windclan, and the prophecy Mothflight gave Heatherstar at the beginning turned out to be true. Telltale would have never have become the great warrior and leader he was without leaving Windclan, and by extension, without meeting Jake. Even though his journey didn't end with him killing Sparrow and fulfilling the destiny he thought he was supposed to have, Telltale ended up reaching a better goal of becoming a better person from meeting Jake, which makes the journey truly worth it. Phew, I just felt like I wrote a super long video telling you all why Jake and Tallstar are my OTP, but there you have it. Tallstar's Revenge is such a good book, and there's still plenty of things about it that I feel like I could talk about, but this video is going to be pretty long, so maybe I'll cover more in a future video. If you haven't read Tallstar's Revenge yet, but still watch this video, it's still worth picking up. I didn't spoil everything in the book, and it's good enough to warrant a read anyway, in my opinion. Like I said, Tallstar's Revenge is now my favorite book in the series. What did you guys think of it? Got another super edition you like more? Tell me in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I want to throw a special thank you out there to all the artists who did art for this video. They're absolutely amazing, and the artwork was so handy to have since there's not much art to find for Tallstar's Revenge. I'll have links to their channels here in the video and in the description, so you can go check them out. I also want to thank people who have sent me fan art the last few weeks. That's so kind of you. Thank you everyone who was patient while I worked on this video. It took quite a while for me to think of exactly what I wanted to say. The next video will most likely be out sooner, but I've got a pretty big video in the works that might take me a while to write, so we'll see what happens. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a fantastic day, everyone. Simmy out. Since the book ended shortly after Deadpaw is made,
Is his name really Telltale?
Telltale, yes it is. I mean, his name's Tallstar, and they had to go back and give him a warrior name. What are you going to name him?
But Telltale?
Telltale! Because he was born with a very long tail. And there's already a cat named Longtail, so you can't name him Longtail.